So again, we will discuss how to graph piecewise defined function, how to get the dominant range, but our main goal is how are we going to graph piecewise defined, and then we're going to proceed to operations on functions, okay, and other types of functions. So let's write this example. Let f be the function defined by f of x is equal to x minus 1 if x is less than 3, and f of x is 5 if x is 3, and the third one, f of x is equal to 2x plus 1 if 3 less than x. So let's use board. So let's try example again. So f of x. So the first equation class, we know that this is a line. Since we are dealing with piecewise, okay, we will just need to get the part of the graph of this line wherein the value of x is less than 3. And we know that when we imagine the graph, here we have x minus 1, the slope is 1, and the y-intercept is negative 1. So the graph is from the y-intercept, negative 1, and the slope is 1. So we'll go up 1 and then 1 to the right. So this is the graph. But since this is piecewise, the value of x is less than 3. The value of x is less than 3. So it means that we just need to get the value from this part. Okay, because it's less than 3. And the other one, x is 3 and y is 5. Therefore, this is a point, 3, 5. And the third one is also a line. The slope is 2 and the y-intercept is 1. So from y-intercept 1, the slope is 2. 1, 2, we go up 2 step up and then 1 to the right. This is the line, but we will just consider 3 less than x means x is greater than 3 and it's open. So from 3, your value of x is greater than 3, so it means on this part. Okay, so when we graph it, so we will have here x is less than 3. What are those values? 3, open to 3, and those values that are less than 3, which is 3, 2, 1. And let's graph. If x is 3, y is 2. If x is 2, 2 minus 1, y is 1. If x is 1, y is 0. So we will have 3, 2. And this is open, since we have here less than 2, 1 here, and then 1, 0 here. So going down. Okay, so yun yan. And we have a point 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so when we draw a vertical line, meron lang isang point na magta-touch sa vertical line because this is open. So it means that hindi siya kasama yung value ni 3. Okay? The third is also a line. So the equation 2x plus 1 if x is greater than 3. So we have, what are those values? 3, 4, and so on and so forth. 5. So if x is 3, so 2 times 3, 6 plus 1, it's 7. If x is 4, 4 times 2, it's 8 plus 1, 9. If x is 5, 5 times 2, 10 plus 1, it's 11. So we will have, sa taas lang yung graph ng line. So we'll have 3, 7, 5, 6, 7, 3, 7, and it's open to 3. 4, 9. So pag ganun siya class. Okay. So this is the graph of this piecewise function. Okay. So how are we going to find the domain? When we look on this graph, the first equation, x minus 1, if x is less than 3, we know that the domain, again, the domain is the x values. When we check the x values, is open to 3, going down. So it's negative infinity, right? The graph here is negative infinity up to negative 3, but it's open to negative 3, the domain for this line. And we have here the domain is 3. Okay? So again, when we draw vertical line, okay lang. When we do vertical line test, may isa lang na point na magta-touch doon. So still, it's a function. And for this line, okay, it's open to 3. So we are, the value of x is from 3 up to positive infinity. And it's open to 3. Right? 3 and it's open up to positive infinity. So when we check the values for x, we can see that we can use negative infinity up to positive infinity. Okay, so the domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, how about the range? So for range class, we're going to check now the y values. Okay, the y values. What are the possible values that we can have, okay, given these 3 equations? What do you think is the range? For the first one, what do you think is the range? If x is negative 3, y is 2, right? And it's open to 2. Okay. What happened to value of y? If x is 2, y is 1. So, approaching to negative infinity, right? So, we start, it's open to 2 up to negative infinity. Kasi lumiliit yung value ni y, right? For this line, okay, the range is negative 2. So, negative infinity to negative 2, and it's open. Lagi ang nasa left class, mas maliit na value. Kasi baka ang gawin nyo, negative 3 to negative infinity, which is wrong. Kasi mas maliit pa din to kaysa sa negative 3. Ang pinakamalaking value na ay negative 3, but it's open to negative 3. Okay, so this is wrong. So, for the range, for this line, we have the range negative infinity up to negative 2. And here, the range is 5. Okay, and for the third line, if x is 3, y is 7. Okay, so what happened to the values of y? It's increasing. It's approaching to positive infinity. So it's 7 to positive infinity, and it's open. Okay, open to 7 up to positive infinity. So what do you think is the range for this piecewise? What do you think is the range? So we have Si 5 ba class ay pasok dito? Diba? Hindi. So, hindi natin pwedeng i-union lang. Negative infinity to negative 2. Union 7 to positive infinity. And also, we're going to include 5. Okay, so we have 5. And so, we can combine this two. Negative infinity to negative 2, it's open. Union 7 to positive infinity. Okay, so that is the range for this function. Is that clear? Do you have questions for this example? Okay, so let's have another example. So ito pa din ay nasa module. G of x is equal to 3x minus 2 if x is less than 1, and g of x is equal to x squared if 1 is less than or equal to x. 1 is less than or equal to x means that x is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so how are we going to graph? The first one, obviously it's a line again. It's pointing to the right since the slope is positive. And the y-intercept, so when we imagine the graph of this, the y-intercept is negative 2. And then the slope is positive 3. So 1, 2, 3, then go to the right 1. This is the line. But the restriction of the domain is x less than 1. So, ito lang na part na to. Kukunin natin. And the other one is a quadratic equation. And we know that the graph for quadratic equation is a parabola. And this is parabola opening upward since the coefficient of x squared is positive. So we have, this is the graph for the second one. And the restriction of domain, x is greater than or equal to 1. So we will just need this part of the parabola. So when we do, okay, so let's set table of values. So we have here x is less than 1. So we have 1, but it's open to 1. And then going to the left since it's less than. So 1, 0, negative 1. By the way, class, it's up to you kung ilang values ang gusto yung kunin. Basta magmukhang line na to at nagsasatisfy naman dito. Even this one, magmukhang parabola, okay lang kahit ilang points ang kunin. Okay, so if x is 1, so 3 minus 2, y is 1. If x is 0, y is negative 2. If x is negative 1, so negative 3 minus 2, it's negative 5. The other one is a parabola. So it's close to 1 since we have here greater than or equal to. So it's close. So we have closed circle, and then 1, since it's greater than or equal to 1, from 1 up to positive infinity. Okay? So if x is 1, y is 1. If x is 2, y is 4. If x is 3, y is 9. So dito siya, yung right side of the parabola. So when we graph it, we need to graph piecewise function class in one Cartesian plane. So we'll just plot the points. So we have 1, 1. And it's open. 0, negative 2. Negative 1, 5. So pag ganun siya. Itong part na to. Okay, and the second one is a parabola, 1, 1. So sa una class, open kay 1. Pero pagdating sa parabola, close na siya. So, magiging close na to. Okay? Basta, pag open, tapos nag-close, magiging close na yon. Or una sa close, tapos sa pangalawa open siya, close pa din. Okay? So, 1, 1, 2, 4. 3, 9. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, kunwari, ano na yan, mukhang parabola. Itong part na to, class. Okay, ito lang yung graph na kinuha natin. And name your axis, x and y axis. Okay, so, given the piecewise function, what do you think is the domain? In the first one, we have 1, 0, negative 1. It's decreasing. The value of y decreasing. Okay, so the domain for the line is what? Negative infinity up to 1. Ang pinakamalaking value na meron tayo sa line ay 1. Okay, and it's open to 1. Okay, so the domain of the first equation is negative infinity to 1. And for the quadratic equation, so we have the domain close to 1. So the value of x is going or increasing. Okay, the value of x increases. Okay, so the domain for the parabola, it's from 1 and it's close to 1 up to positive infinity kasi lumalaki na yung value, di ba? X is greater than or equal to 1. So when we write this in interval notation, that is 1 up to positive infinity. Okay, so what do you think is the domain? Dito, hindi kasama si 1. We have negative infinity to 1. Pero pagdating kasi dito, we need to combine eh. Kasama na si 1 up to positive infinity. Therefore, the domain, meron ba tayong values na hindi magagamit? Or lahat ng real numbers magagamit? What do you think? What do you think is the domain for this function? Sa una, hindi kasama si 1. Pero sa second function class, kasama na. So, what is the domain kung ganun?
Negative infinity to positive infinity.
So, we have negative infinity up to positive infinity. Kasi hindi man kasama dito si 1, pero sa pangalawa kasama na. Ibig sabihin, wala nang any real number are considered. Okay? How about the range? So, kung ang pinakamaliit na value dito ay 1, if the value of x is 1, the value of y is 1. E pababa, lumiliit yung value ni y. We're talking about now range. So, ang kailangan natin tingnan, y values. Okay? Lumiliit ang values. So, anong napapansin nyo? Ano ang pinakamalaking value for y at ano ang pinakamaliit na value sa y? So, for the first, what is the range? So, still, we have the highest value that we can have is 1, but it's open to 1. Tapos, lumiliit yung value. So, ibig sabihin, meron tayo. Still, same ng domain niya. Negative infinity up to 1. And it's open to 1. Okay? And the range for the second one, it's close to 1. If x is 1, y is 1. So, the range for the quadratic equation, from 1 up to, lumalaki yung values ni y. So, from 1 up to positive infinity. Okay? So, when we check the y values, negative infinity up to 1, and here we have 1 to positive infinity. So what do you think is the range for the given piecewise?
Negative infinity to positive infinity po.
Okay, very good. Negative infinity up to positive infinity or set of real numbers. Kasi class, hindi man natin sinama dito si 1. Dito naman sa pangalawa kasama siya. Okay, titingnan natin yung mga values ng y. So therefore, same lang sila ng domain and range. Is that clear? Are we clear? Can you
Yes
follow?
po, ma'am. Clear po.
Yes po, ma'am. Yes po.
So let's have another example. Alright, number 3, h of x is equal to x plus 3 if x is not equal to 3. Okay, so you can use this equation, class, the first one, if the value of x is all real numbers except 3. So, ibig sabihin, line siya, pero dapat naka-open sa 3. Okay, hindi mo isasama ang bawa. So, this is also a line. The slope is positive and the y-intercept is 3. So, 1, 2, 3. The slope is 1. So, 1, punta ka ng, taas ka ng isa, punta sa right ng isa. So, ganyan yung graph, pointing to the right since the slope is positive. I-open mo sa 3. If x is 3, y is 6, 4, 5, 6. So, ibig sabihin, open, may open dyan. Okay, open yan. Kasi nga, hindi kasama itong 3. If, okay, pag ang value ni x is 3, so open doon. Pero buo siya. Okay, open lang sa part na yon. Tapos, the other one is a point, 3, 2, 3, 2. So, still, it's a function kasi pag may vertical line, isang point lang ang magta-touch. Okay? So, given this, when we graph this properly, okay, so we will have, pwede ang negative. Negative 1, 0, 1, ikaw nang bahala, mag-continue. Basta mag-game line siya. Kunin mo pa rin ang 3 pero i-open mo doon. Okay? Ganyan. Those are the possible values. Kung gusto nyo ng fraction, pwede naman. Basta, i-open mo dito. So, we will have, if x is negative 1, y is 2. If x is 0, y is 3. If x is 1, y is 4. If x is 2, y is 5. And if x is 3, but it is not included, 3, y is 6. Negative 1, 2. Negative 1, 2. 0, 3. 4. 4, 5, 6. It's open. 3, 6. Touch. Basta it's a line class, open siyang ganyan. And then, point. 3, 2. Okay. So what do you think is the domain? Dito sa una, sa line na to, ano ang domain? Can we use negative numbers? Can we use positive numbers? Can we use, ano na lang ang value na pwede? All real numbers except 3. Okay? Yun yung domain ng line. At sa point, the domain is 3. Okay? So what do you think is the domain? Dito, hindi kasama. Hindi kasama si 3. Lahat, all real numbers except 3. On the second one, sa point, ang domain ay 3. So what is the domain for this piecewise?
All real numbers.
Negative infinity at the positive infinity or all real numbers. Kasi dito sa pangalawa, kasama na si 3 eh. Eh, yan 3 na yan lang yung value na hindi pwede dito. So, pag kinuha natin ang union nila, it's negative infinity after positive infinity. How about the range? How about the range? Tingnan nyo ang y value, set of y values. Dito, ang y na hindi lang natin makukuha ay 6 kasi hindi kasama si 3 eh. Right? Dito naman, ang range ay 2. Okay. Dito naman ay nandito eh. Okay? Dito kasi, ang range ng una, all real numbers except 6. Okay? Sa pangalawa, ang range ay 2. Si 2 ay part kanina ng all real numbers except 6. Okay? Pasok siya doon, di ba? Kasi part naman siya ng real numbers at hindi naman siya 6. Right? So, ano ang range natin?
Negative infinity, ma'am. 2 to 5.
May 5 tayo. Hindi ba tayo pwedeng gumamit na, kasi sabi mo 5. Hindi ba tayo pwedeng gumamit ng 5.1, 5.2, 5.01, 5.001?
Negative infinity to 6.
And it's
Open po yung 6.
okay. So, pwede tayong all real numbers except 6. Right? Y should not be equal to 6. Ang ibig sabihin nito, class, ay negative infinity. Yung sinabi ni Ira, negative infinity to 6. But it's open to 6 kasi hindi kasama eh. Union 6 to positive infinity. Kapag ginrap yan, ay kasama si 6, di ba? Kasama ba si 6? Ay, hindi kasama. So, negative, pag ginrap natin yan, di ba? Ang ibig sabihin yan, ito. Negative infinity to 6, open to 6, pag ganyan. Tapos ito, union, 6 to positive infinity. Ganun siya. Going to the right naman. Ito lang talaga ang hindi kasama. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, dito sa range natin, ang hindi lang talaga pwede ay si 6 kasi hindi natin sinama sa domain si 3. Okay? Ito naman si 2, bumalito. Si 2 kasi ay part nito ng unang domain. Kasi ang unang range natin ay okay, all real numbers except 6. So ito din yan. Negative infinity to 6, union 6 to positive infinity kasi hindi kasama si 6. Okay? Si 2 ay part nito. Diba? Nandito yan, oh. Bawa, dito si 2. Okay? Kaya pag pinagsama sila, ito pa din yon. Clear? Ito din yon. Ang ibig sabihin ng y is not equal to 6. All real numbers except 6. That's why I use parentheses. Kasi hindi kasama si 6. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Next is so nandito naman yan class, yung graph, okay, yung dominant range. Yan siya. Okay. So bigyan ko lang din ng focus to. We know that this is an absolute value function, and the absolute value function, the graph is like V. Okay? So yan. V. So we have, and we know that from the definition of absolute value function, okay? Absolute value function means that f of x is equal to x if x is greater than or equal to 0. We know that for absolute value function, the domain are set of real numbers because we can find the absolute value of negative numbers, of rational numbers. There is always a real number, okay? And when we get the absolute value of negative numbers, so dito siya papasok. F of x is equal to negative x if x is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so there is also value for negative numbers. Okay, there exists a value which is a real number. Okay, even for negative numbers. So dito siya papasok. So the definition of absolute value of x means that when f of x is equal to x, ito yung mga values from 0 up to positive infinity. And the second one, f of x is equal to negative x if x is less than or equal to 0. So it means that negative infinity to 0. So it's close to 0. The first one, it's open to 0. 0 to positive infinity. And it's close. Okay? And the second one is negative infinity up to 0. Because 0 is the highest value for this one. Pababa. Kasi less than or equal to 0. So it means that from negative infinity up to 0. So for the absolute value function class, the domain is, since here we have the domain of the first one greater than or equal to 0, ito yung part na yan. Yung right side ng absolute value function. And the other one, ito yun. Kasi ang value ni x less than or equal to 0. And it's close. Kasi close pareho. Okay? Ito naman yan, yung nasa left side ng B. Okay? When we get the domain of this part, 0 to positive infinity. For the second one, the domain is still negative infinity up to 0. So when we get the domain for absolute value, is from negative infinity up to positive infinity. Okay? Kasi dito, 0 ang pinakamababa, pataas. Okay? Dito naman, 0 ang pinakamataas, pababa. So, ibig sabihin, pag kinuha natin ang intersection ng dalawa, it's from negative infinity up to positive infinity. So, that's the domain for absolute value. For absolute value, the range is always 0 to positive infinity. Why? Because when we get the absolute value of negative numbers, okay, or when we get the absolute value of rational numbers, still the answer is positive. So it means that the lowest value that we can have for y is 0. Because the absolute value, makikita din naman yun sa graph. Ang pinakamaliit na value ni y dito ay 0. Diba? 0, 0 for the origin. So the value of y there is 0. Okay? At kapag kinuha mo ang absolute value ng negative numbers, magkakaroon ka ng y. The answer is positive. That's why the range is from 0 to positive infinity. Is that clear? Clear ba tayo doon, class?
Yes po.
Yes po.
Okay, so let's continue. We also have another special type of functions, which is greatest integer function. The greatest integer function are denoted by this. Okay? Yung may dalawang, ano ba tawag dito? Bracket, tas may line pa. Okay? So it means that when you see this symbol, it means that the greatest integer, okay, less than or equal to x. So we read this greatest integer less than or equal to x, where n is an integer. The answer is always an integer. When we say integer, class, what are those? Negative numbers, positive numbers, including 0. Okay? Less than or equal to x. Ibig sabihin, when we get the greatest integer of 1, okay, it's an integer. So the greatest integer of 1 is still 1. Hindi pwedeng tataas kay 1. Okay, that's why the greatest integer of 1.3 is 1. Hindi pwedeng 2. Okay, kasi dapat ang laging sagot ay integer at hindi pwedeng tumaas doon. Hindi tayo mag-round up. Okay? So, ang pinakamalapit na integer kay 1.3 ay 1. And the greatest integer of 0.5 is 0. 0 is also an integer. Hindi mo i-round up to 1. Kasi sabi, the definition for greatest integer, it's less than or equal to the given. Okay? And the greatest integer of negative 4.2, the greatest integer 4. So, alam naman natin we can represent integers using number line. 0, negative 1, negative 2. So, we have 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So, going to the left, the numbers decreasing. Going to the right, the numbers are increasing. So when we get the greatest integer of negative 4.2. So halimbawa, nandito ang negative 4.2. Dapat less than dyan. And the answer is negative 5. Kasi mas malaki ang nasa right na number kesa sa left. Okay? Ang negative 4.2 class, bawa, ito ay negative 4. Negative 4.2, halimbawa, nandito siya. And we have here negative 5. Hindi ka mas malaki si negative 4 kesa kay negative 5. Hindi pwedeng ang magiging sagot mo ay mas malaki pa dito. Okay? So, si negative 4.2 ay mas malapit at less than siya kay negative 5. Kaya hindi pwedeng ang sagot dito ay negative 4. Kasi nga, ang greatest integer means less than or equal to. Hindi pwedeng mas malaki. Okay? So, the answer for the greatest integer of negative 4.2 is negative 5. The greatest integer of negative 8 still negative 8. Okay, so the graph of the greatest integer function is sketched in figure 15. So when we check the graph of greatest integer function, it's like staircase. This one. Okay, para siyang hagdan. Okay. And then its domain is the set of all real numbers and its range consists of all the integers. Kasi laging ang sagot lang ng greatest integer function class, you can use for domain kahit ang sagot mo ay rational or irrational or any real number. So that's the domain for greatest integer. Pero pagdating sa range, pag kinuha mo na, tulad nito, 1.3, uh, it's rational. Okay? 0.5, it's rational. Pero pag kinuha mo na yung value niyan, nagiging integer lang. Kaya ang range ng greatest integer ay all integers or set of integers, positive and negative integers, including 0. So on many graphic calculators, the greatest integer function is denoted by int. Ang graphing calculator kasi class, mahal yan. Pero pwedeng naman ngayon dahil marami na tayong math applications, okay, yung symbol na int doon, that is the graph for greatest integer. So by the way, how are we going to graph greatest integer function? By the way, class, greatest integer function is also called step function. Kasi nga, para siyang hagdan. By the way, paano ba natin ito nakuha? Kasi ang sabi sa definition ng greatest integer function, pala dito nabanggit. So we will have the value of x is between n and n plus 1. Close lagi dito. The value of x is between n and n plus 1. Kaya dito, sa example natin, we have here, close dito, open dito. Kasi pag ginrap natin to class, f of x is equal to 1 if x is between 0 and 1. F of x is 2 if x is between 1 and 2. F of x is 3 if x is between 2 and 3. F of x is equal to 4 if x is between 3 and 4. So when we graph it, nasa first quadrant lang naman siya. Ito yung sa taas nung kaninang graph, nung sa module. I-graph lang natin itong given. So, the value of y is 1 and the value of x is between 0 and 1. Okay? So, it's close to 0. Diba, laging close yung nasa left side. And it's open to 1. Again, ang value ni x ay sa pagitan ng 0 at ni 1. Ito yun. Itong part na yun. The value of y is 1 if the value of x is between 0 and 1. So 1. And the value of x is between 0 and 1. Next, y is 2. The value of x is between 1 and 2. So it's close to 1. Open to 2. Kasi nasa pagitan nitong dalawang 2 eh. Okay, y is 3 if the value of x is between 2 to 3. The value of y is 3 if the value of x is between 2 to 3. So it's close to 2, open to 3. Y is 4 if the value of y is between 3 and 4. So it's close to 3, open to 4. So that's the graph for this Okay, this is greatest integer function. Itong part na to, class, yan yung sa graph nandito. Itong taas. Okay? Laging close yung nasa kaliwa, open sa kabila. Kasi hindi pwedeng pareho silang close. Kasi pag gumawa tayo ng vertical line test, ay dapat isang point lang ang magta-touch doon. So, close dito, open dito. So, ibig sabihin may isa lang na point na magta-touch doon. Ganon din dito. And continue the process. Okay? Pero yung kanina sa example ko, ito lang yan. Itong part lang na to ang ginamit ko. Okay, so this is also an example of greatest integer function. Okay, kasi ang function niya, the greatest integer function of x minus x, and determine its domain and range. So you just need to substitute. This is the function. Sabi natin ang domain are set of real numbers, so you can use negative or positive numbers including 0. Just substitute it here. Okay, and you are going to obtain the value for y, and then graph this. So makakabuo kayo ng table of values. Ito pala yung sinasabi ko kanina, the greatest integer of x, wherein the value of x is between n and n plus 1. Okay, so that's it. At ang graph nito ay nasa figure 17. Ito. Okay? Do you have questions? Do you have any question? Pwede din naman class na dito din, may graph din dito. So f of x is equal to, given this, f of x is equal to 1 if the value of x is between -4 and -3. Laging mas malaki yung nasa right side kaysa dito. Kasi to n, tas dito n plus 1. F of x is 2 if x, sorry, this is close yung isa. Is between -4 and -3. F of x is 2 if x is between -3 and -2. Y is 3 if x is between -2 and -1. F of x is 4 if x is between -1, 0. Okay. And then, we graph. So, ang mga values ni x natin ay nasa second quadrant naman kasi puro negative. So, y is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, we have -1, -2, -4. So, we have y is 1, and the value of x is between -4 and -3. So, it's close to -4, open to -3. Y is 2 if the value of x is between -3, open to -2, between -3 and -2. Y is 3, 1, 2, 3, if the value of x is between -2 and -1. So, close to -2, open to -1. Y is 4 if x is between -1 and 0. So, close to -1, open to 0. So, this is the graph. Okay, this is the graph for this function. Is that clear?
Yes po, ma'am.
Let's proceed to operations on functions. So new functions may be formed from given functions by adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing function values. Accordingly, these new functions are known as the sum, difference, product, and quotient of the original function. So for operations on functions, so it's just the same on how we add, subtract, multiply, and divide expressions or polynomials. So the process is just the same. Okay, so we produce a new function when we perform operations. So the definitions of the sum, difference, product, and quotient of two functions. Given the two functions f and g, their sum denoted by f plus g is the function defined by f plus g of x means f of x plus g of x. Their difference denoted by f minus g is the function defined by f minus g of x means f of x minus g of x. Their product denoted by f times g is the function defined by f multiplied by g of x means f of x times g of x. And their quotient denoted by f divides g is the function defined by f over g of x means f of x divided by g of x, where g should not be equal to, the g of x should not be equal to 0. So in each case, the domain of the resulting function consists of those values of x common to the domain of f and g. So the domain of the resulting, when you combine the two functions, okay, so you're going to determine the domain of that, with the additional requirement in case 4 that the value of x for which g of x is 0 are excluded. So the third one is rational kasi. So pag rational, there is a restriction for domain, right? That the denominator should not be equal to 0. So let's have example. Given that f and g are the functions defined by f of x is equal to square root of x plus 1 and g of x is equal to square root of x minus 4, define the following and determine the domain to the resulting function. So we're going to find f plus g, f minus g, f times g, f divided by g. Okay, when we say define the following, you are not going to define it. Okay, it means that you're going to find the sum of the functions, the difference, the product, and the quotient. And we're going to determine their domain. So again, when we perform operations on functions, so it's just the same on how we do or how we perform operations on polynomials. Okay, when we add polynomials, we just add similar terms, right? So f of x plus g of x. So we're going to add square root of x plus 1 plus square root of x minus 4. Okay, so that's it. That is the sum of f plus g. Okay, f minus g, so we're going to subtract square root of x plus 1 minus square root of x minus 4. To find the product of the two functions, square root of x plus 1 times square root of x minus 4, the answer is square root of x plus 1 times square root of x minus 4. So how do we multiply radicals? So pwede nyo din, this is also the same with x plus 1 multiplied by x minus 4. So you can multiply the two factors, so which is when we multiply x plus 1 multiplied by x minus 4, the answer is x squared minus 3x minus 4. That's it. Okay, but when we here in calculus, hindi na natin kailangan pang i-simplify. Kaya ang sagot na ito. Ganon din dito, pero sa algebra, nagsisimplify tayo. Ang goal lang kasi natin class ay just to get the answer, hindi na kailangan yung pinaka-simplify niya. As long as valid yung procedure na ginawa ko. So dito kasi sa f divides by g means f of x divided by g of x. So f of x, which is square root of x plus 1, divide by square root of x minus 4. This is now the answer. Diba sa algebra, ang gagawin natin, mag-rationalize tayo. Pero ang goal lang natin dito ay eto na yon. Okay? So the domain of f, when we get this is a square root function. Kailangan natin na ang radical, ano ang mga value na hindi pwede sa kanya. Okay? So, x plus 1, ganun tayo kumuha ng domain for square root function. X plus 1 should be greater than or equal to 0. I use greater than or equal to 0 kasi pwede naman ang 0 mag-0 ang loob. Square root of 0, that's 0. Pero pag negative na yung sagot, hindi na pwede. So, the value of x is greater than or equal to negative 1. So, when we write this in interval notation, ito siya. Ang pinakamaliit na value ng x ay negative 1. And there is greater than or equal to. So it means that x is equal to negative 1 and x is equal to negative 1 and x is greater than negative 1. So ibig sabihin, ang pinakamaliit na value ni x ay negative 1. That's why the domain for f of x is negative 1 up to positive infinity. Pag sinulat mo to in interval notation, ito yan. Negative infinity up to positive infinity. And for g of x, for the domain, same procedure, x minus 4 should be greater than or equal to 0. Okay? Therefore, x is greater than or equal to 4. When we write this in interval notation, ito siya, 4 to positive infinity. Okay? So in parts A, B, and C, the domain of the resulting function is 4 up to positive infinity. In part D, ito yan, dito sa pangalawa. Kasi ano lang naman yan walang restriction. Okay? Kasi wala namang denominators. That's why for the domain ng part A, B, and C is 4 up to positive infinity. And for part D, the domain, all real numbers except yung magsi-0 yung ilalim, except 4. That's why the notation is 4 to positive infinity. Di ba ano yan? X should not be equal to 4. So, ang ibig sabihin niyan ay ito, hindi kasama si 4, pataas. 4 to positive infinity. Okay? For letter B. Okay? So, that's it. Next. So that is the first operation. So we have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And another operation class on function is called composite function. So the definition of a composite function, given the two functions f and g, the composite function denoted by f composite g. So merong circle. So that's how we denote composite. F composite g of x means f of g of x. F of g of x. Okay? G composite f of x. They are not equal class. G composite f is g of f of x. Okay? So, given the two functions f and g, the composite function denoted by f composite g is defined by f composite g of x means f of g of x. And the domain of f composite g is the set of all numbers x in the domain of g such that g of x is the domain of f. So, medyo magulo, di ba? So, Let's have example na lang. Illustration first. If f and g are defined, f of x is equal to square root of x, and g of x is 2x minus 3. We're asked to find f composite g. So we'll have f of f composite g of x means f of g of x. So how are we going to do that? You copy first f. And what is our g of x? Our g of x is 2x minus 3. And you're going to plot 2x minus 3 in f. That will be your variable in f. So for f of x, that is square root of x. So you will just follow square root. This will be your x in f. Okay, square root of x. But now your x is 2x minus 3. That's it. That is f composite g. Okay, the domain of g, this is a linear function, and we know that the domain for linear function is set of real numbers. And the domain of f, this is square root function, and for the square root function, square root of x, so the lowest value that we can have for x is 0, and 0 is included. That's why the domain for f is 0 to positive infinity. And when we get the domain of f composite g for this one, diba, this is square root function. So same process, 2x minus 3 to find the domain. It's 2x minus 3 should be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so 2x is greater than or equal to 3. Divide both sides by 2. Therefore, x is greater than or equal to 3 halves. X is greater than or equal to 3 halves means x is equal to 3 halves and x is greater than 3 halves. So when we write this in interval notation, ang pinakamababang value ni x ay 3 halves. Pataas kasi greater than. So this is the interval notation of that. Therefore, the domain of the resulting composite functions is 3 halves up to positive infinity. Okay? Sabi natin, class, ang f composite g is not equal to f composite g is not equal to g composite f. Most of the time, they are not equal. Okay, siguro merong chance, pero hindi siya for all. For some functions, hindi siya equal. So, when we get g composite f, given this, okay. So, kunin natin ang f of x is square root of x. And g of x is equal to 2x minus 3. When we get f composite g kanina, sagot natin ay, so f composite g means f of g of x. So f, your g of x is 2x minus 3. You're going to plot this in f. That will be your variable in f. So you will have square root of 2x minus 3. When we get g composite f of x means g of f of x. So you will have g f of x, your f of x is square root of x. You're going to plot square root of x in g. This will be your variable now in g. So you will have in g 2. Your x now is square root of x minus 3. So when we simplify, that is 2 square root of x minus 3. Obviously, they are not equal. Okay? F composite g of x is not equal to g composite f of x. So the order of the functions, okay, matters. Are we clear? Clear ba tayo dun, class? Do you have questions? Clarification? Okay, another example, given that f of x is equal to 5 over x minus 2 and g of x is equal to 2x plus 1, compute f composite g of t. So now we have a value for x, which is 3. We're going to get f composite g. So we will have picturean ko lang and then let's do it in whiteboard. Can you follow? Nakasunod ba kayo, class? So find f composite g of 3. So f composite g means f of g of 3. Okay, so we'll have f and g of 3. Our g is 2x plus 1. So we will substitute 3 in the given. So we will have 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1, 7. Then you're going to substitute 7 in our f. So we will have 5 over 7 minus 2. It's 5. Therefore, the answer is 1. F of g of 3 is equal to 1. Okay, kung gusto nyo, ayaw nyo munang i-substitute yung sagot. Halimbawa, f composite g of x. So you will have f, then g of x, which is 2x plus 1. Then substitute this in f. So you will have 5 over x is 2x plus 1 minus 2. So you will have 5 over 2x minus 1. And the value of x, class, is 3. So you will have 3 times 2, 6, minus 1, 5. So 5 divided by 5, still the answer is 1. Is that clear? Can you follow? Okay, so let's have another example. Given that f and g are defined by f of x is equal to square root of x and g of x is equal to x squared minus 1, find f composite f, g composite g, f composite g, g composite f. Also determine the domain of the composite function in each part. So let's do this word. So f of x is equal to square root of x and g of x is equal to x squared minus 1. So let's find f composite f. F composite f of x means f of x. So you will have f And then f of x that is equal to square root of x. You're going to plot this in f. So you will have square root of, and the value of x is the square root of x. Square root of x plus, that is 4th root of x. Bakit? 1/2 times 1/2. This is also the same with square root of x means, ganyan siya, di ba? The exponential form for square root of x is x raised to 1/2. Okay, so square root of x, that is also equal to this one. And when we are for the what's this? For law of exponent, we just need to multiply the power by power. So 1/2 times 1/2, that is 1/2 times 1/2, that is 1/4. And this is the 4th root of x. So that's why it's 4th root of x. Okay, what is the domain for 4th root? Can we have for the value of x negative numbers? So what do you mean 4th root ba? When you multiply the number or the base 4 times by itself, dapat yung sagot, yung radical, di ba? So that's 4th root. So what is the domain for the first one? 4th root of x. Pwede ba ang negative numbers? Do you think? What is the lowest value that we can have for x? Di ba pag even class, dapat ang radical mo ay positive. 4th root, 6th root, 8th root, 10th root. Dapat ang base mo doon ay positive. Kaya nga sa square root, hindi pwede ang negative numbers. Kasi ano yun, even yun eh. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, hindi tayo pwedeng gumamit ng negative numbers for the domain. Therefore, the lowest value that we can have for x is 0. Kasi meron namang 4th root of 0 eh. Still 0. Kasi 0 times 0 times 0 times 0 still 0. And it's close to 0 up to positive infinity. Okay? Next. G composite G of x. G composite G of x means G of x. So we'll have G of x, that is x squared minus 1. We're going to plot this in G. This will be our x in G. So we will have the squared of x squared minus 1 minus 1. When we expand this, this is the squared of binomial. So x to the 4th minus 2x squared plus 1 minus 1. Squared of the first term, x to the 4th. Squared of the second term, that's 1. Twice the product of the terms, negative 2x squared. So when we simplify it, we will have x to the 4th minus 2x squared. This is 0, right? So this is polynomial function or algebraic functions. Okay, so we have types of functions class. We have algebraic, kasi naka-encounter tayo ng polynomials eh. Algebraic functions or polynomial functions. And we have transcendental functions. What are those algebraic functions? Algebraic functions is also polynomial functions. Ano ba yung mga yun? Diba? Yung may mga higher degree, nandyan ang linear functions, quadratic functions, cubic functions, and whatever the powers, okay, square root functions, radical functions, they are under algebraic functions. What are transcendental functions? Transcendental functions like trigonometric functions, inverse trigonometric functions, exponential functions, logarithmic functions, natural exponential functions, natural logarithmic functions, hyperbolic functions, okay? Those are example of transcendental functions. And this is also polynomial functions. And I'm sure you are familiar with polynomial functions kasi yan naman yung na-discuss sa algebra class. Okay? So for this, what is the domain? Nagkakaroon lang naman class ng restriction sa domain at sa range. For domain ng square root function, or this is fourth root kasi eh, bawal ang negative yung magiging sagot. Kaya meron ng restriction sa domain. Hindi natin pwedeng isama ang negative infinity. From 0 lang, from 0 to positive infinity. Pag polynomial functions, like quadratic, linear, yan, cubic function, ang domain yan ay all real numbers. Okay, wala naman kasi itong denominator. Wala rin siyang square root. So, hindi naman siya magkakaroon ng undefined. Doon lang naman lagi sa square root functions. Okay? Lahat ng may mga radicals, yan. And kapag naka-rational. Yun naman yung may mga restrictions sa domain. So, for B, the resulting function, the domain is negative infinity up to positive infinity. Next, F composite G. F composite G, so f of x is square root of x. And g of x is x squared minus 1. So we're asked to find f composite G of x. F composite G of x means f of g of x. Okay, so ibig sabihin ng composite, sa isang function class, meron pang nasa loob niyang function. Okay, so f composite G means f of g of x. So we have f, then the g of x that is equal to x squared minus 1. We're going to plot this in f. This will be our variable in f. So we will just follow the form for f of x. So we'll have square root of x squared minus 1. What is the domain for this one? Square root of x squared minus 1. So, pwede nyo isolve x squared minus 1 should be greater than or equal to 0. So, x squared is greater than or equal to 1. Therefore, x is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, so we will have for the domain for this is a positive, negative, right? Positive, negative 1. X is greater than or equal to positive, negative 1. So we have x greater than, x is equal to 1 and x is greater than 1. And also x is equal to negative 1 and x is greater than negative 1. So the domain for that is negative infinity up to negative 1 and it's close. Union 1 to positive infinity. Okay, so that's the domain for square root of x squared minus 1. And the last one, we're asked to find the composite of G composite F x. G composite F means G of f of x. So we'll have G f of x that is equal to square root of x. We're going to plot square root of x in G. This will be the variable. So we will have square root of x squared minus 1. So we have x squared minus 1 sa G. So when we simplify the square root of x, that is x minus 1. Because class, sabi ko nga kanina, square root of x, that is also equal to x raised to 1/2. So it means that this one, we will have x raised to 1/2, the square root of x raised to 1/2, and 2 times 1/2. When we, for law of exponent, you just multiply 2 by 1/2. That is 1. Okay, so the answer is x. That's why the answer here is x. X minus 1. And for the domain, this is a linear function. The domain for linear function is negative infinity up to positive infinity. Is that clear?
Yes po.
Okay. But, may kadugtong to class. Ang sabi natin sa domain ng composite, dapat daw the domain, okay, of F composite G is the set of all numbers x in the domain of G. So, kung ang given ay F composite G, dapat yung magiging domain natin nasa G. Okay? Ang G natin kanina, okay, ang G natin ay x squared minus 1. X squared minus 1. Dapat F composite G, this one. Wala bang, pwede ba natin gamitin dyan ang negative infinity? So dapat you consider the domain of the given functions. Can we use negative infinity? Can we?
Yes po, ma'am. Pwede po. Kasi mag-square naman po siya kung sakali. So, magiging positive din po.
Okay, so let's check. So here, class, for letter this one. In part B, okay, ito ang nakuha natin, class. It's a linear function, but the domain is 0 to positive infinity. So we will determine y from 0 to positive infinity only. So in part B, note that even though x minus 1, it's a linear function, and we know that the domain for linear function is set of real numbers. The domain of G composite F, hindi pa pala natin ito nakukuha, G composite F. Do we? Kuha na ba natin G composite F? Right, ito na tayo, di ba, sa G composite F. By the definition of a composite function, dapat, kinuha nga ba natin, class? G composite F, yes. Dapat, G composite F, dapat si F, di ba, ang pinaka-i-consider natin. Si f plus, we have here square root function. Okay, according to the definition, for composite, dapat the set of all numbers x in the domain of f such that f of x is in the domain of G. Thus, the domain of G composite f must be a subset of the domain of f. Dito kasi sa definition, ang given ay f composite G. Kaya ang consider dito class ay na dapat si G, okay, the set of all number x in the domain of G, okay, ay dapat nasa domain ni f. So kapag f composite G, anong tawag dito? Kabaliktaran. G composite f, dapat yung domain ni f nasa G. Or kukunin natin, tawag dito, ulit. So sa f composite G, dapat ang domain ni G, okay, ay nasa f. Okay? It's a subset or part of f. So kapag G composite f, ang domain dapat ni f ay part ni G. Okay? Sa f natin plus, sa square root of x, ang domain lang natin doon, 0 to positive infinity. Okay? So dapat, ang parang kukunin lang natin yung their intersection. Okay? Kasi ito may restriction eh. From 0 to positive infinity ang domain nito. Ito kasi all real numbers. Okay? Kung wala yung square root kasi ito x squared minus 1, it's a quadratic. It's quadratic naman class ay ang domain niyan, set of real numbers din. Kukunin natin ang intersection nila. Kahit ang nakuha natin dito ay linear function, kasi sa linear function, ang domain niyan ay negative infinity. Since kukunin natin ang subset, kasi part lang naman. Okay? Subset is just a part of the whole, right? So, ibig sabihin, saan sila mag-meet? Mag-meet sila sa 0 to positive infinity. 0 to positive infinity. Okay? Tama naman to class. Ang domain nitong x minus 1 ay set of real numbers. But according to the definition for composite, for G composite f, the set of values for f should be on G. Nasa G. Okay? Clear tayo dun, class? So this is the final answer. 0 to positive infinity. Okay? Pero hindi ko na kayo i-require for domain and range ng piecewise. Sabi ko nga, sa piecewise basta mag-graph, okay na yun. Yun ang kailangan kasi natin sa limit. And then, for operations and functions, just perform the operation, kung addition man, subtraction, multiplication, division, and composite. Binigyan ko lang kayo ng idea paano kukunin ang domain and range ng resulting functions. Is that clear? Kasi baka magtaka kayo, bakit nandito sa module? Para lang alam nyo yung paano yung process niya. Okay? So, that's it. So, thus the domain of G composite F must be a subset of the domain of F. So, observe the results of part C and D of example 3 that F composite G and G composite F are not necessarily equal. So, like I told you earlier, mostly they are not equal. Maybe for some functions, mag-i-equal sila. But most of the time, they are not equal. F composite G is not equal to G composite F. Hindi natin nila lahat. Okay? Merong pagkakataon. Pero most of the time, hindi sila equal. So, napakita naman natin yan. Sa part C and part D, obviously, they are not equal. And kanina, nakita din natin. Okay? So, Illustration 2, if h of x is equal to cube of 4x squared plus 1, we can express h as the composition of the two functions f and g, for which f of x is equal to x cubed and g of x is equal to 4x squared plus 1. So when we get f composite g, para makuha si h, it's a new function. Okay? So when we perform f composite g of x means f of g of x. So we have f and g of x that is equal to 4x squared plus 1. We're going to substitute 4x squared plus 1 in f. That will be our variable in f. So we will have our x in f is 4x squared plus 1. And when we follow this, the cube of 4x squared plus 1. So that's how we perform operations on function and how we do composite. Okay, so ganun din sa example number 4. So I've told you, hindi naman kailangang mag-simplify pa. As long as you get the composition of the given functions, you perform the operations, that's it. Kung naka-radical man, hindi na natin siya isa-simplify. Kasi dito, hindi na naman siya, the final answer is 1 over square root of x squared plus 3. Okay, and nandito din yung mga type of functions na discuss ko na to, linear functions. This is the form f of x is equal to mx plus b, and we know that the graph is a line. And we also have constant function. Constant function class, the form is f of x is equal to b. So the graph is, the line is parallel to x-axis. Ito yan, figure 2. And then we also have polynomial functions. So this is the form for polynomial functions. And under polynomial functions class, we have linear functions, quadratic functions, cubic functions, rational functions. Those are types of, those are kinds of polynomial functions. And an algebraic function is one formed by a finite number of algebraic operations on the identity function and a constant function. We know already identity function, we already know constant function. They are under algebraic or polynomial functions. So these algebraic operations include addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, raising to powers, and extracting roots. So ito yung mga operations na ginagawa natin sa algebra. And then polynomial and rational functions are particular kinds of algebraic. So that's yung sinabi ko kanina, rational functions, square root functions, they are under algebraic function. And then in addition to algebraic functions, we shall consider transcendental functions. So what are the example of transcendental? Trigonometric functions, logarithmic, exponential functions. So those are transcendental functions. And we can classify them if it's odd function, even function, or neither of the two. When we say even function, if the graph is symmetric with respect to the y-axis, okay? And an odd function if the graph is symmetric to the origin. So wala tayong symmetric to x-axis kasi nga hindi pwedeng may maulit na value sa x. So it's either y-axis, okay, or in the origin, okay? If the function is symmetric to y-axis, it's an even function. So one of the examples that we can have for even function is quadratic. And alam naman natin, ang graph ng quadratic class ay parabola. And we know that, na-discuss na to sa parabola, konting lang, ang graph nun ay symmetric sa y. Ang naghahati doon, di ba, ay ang y-axis. We just consider parabola opening upward and downward. Kasi yung to the right and to the left, hindi siya function. And that is symmetric to y-axis. And for the odd function, the example is a cubic function, and it's symmetric to origin. Okay? And so yun yung isang methods para malaman natin kung one of the methods that we can use if the given is a graph. Tingnan nyo kung symmetric pa siya sa origin or sa y. Pag wala sa dalawa, so it's neither of the two. Okay? And then we can also determine a given function, okay, without looking on the graph. Halimbawa, ang given ay function or equation. You will just substitute negative x in the given function. Okay? For example, the given equation is x squared. You're going to substitute negative x in the given function. If the answer is the original function, then it's even. Okay, like for example, the given function is x squared. If we are going to substitute negative x, okay, in the given function, so we will have the square root of negative x. Okay, and the square root of negative x, that is x squared. And the answer, that is equal to the original function. Therefore, this is an even function. Okay, quadratic is an even function. The second one is add function. A function f is an odd function for every x in the domain of f. If we are going to substitute negative x, okay, in the given function, and the answer is the negative of the original function, then it's odd. Okay, for the illustration, the given function is x cubed. If we're going to substitute negative x in the given, so we'll have negative x cubed. When we simplify this, that's negative x cubed. And this is the negative of the original function. Therefore, x cubed or cubic function is an odd function. Okay? And ito yung mga graph nila. This is the graph for y equals x squared or f of x equals x squared. And this is the graph for cubic. G of x equals x cubed. Okay, and then plot the graph of the given functions, and from the graph conjecture whether the function is even, odd, or neither, then confirm the conjecture analytically. So if this is the given, f of x is equal to 3x to the fourth minus 2x squared plus 7. Okay, so when we substitute negative x, so we'll have f of negative x. We will have 3 times negative x to the fourth power minus 2 times negative x squared plus 7. When we simplify, if the power is even and the base is negative, the answer is still positive, right? So we will have 3x to the fourth. This is x squared times negative 2. That's negative 2x squared plus 7. 3x to the fourth minus 2x squared plus 7. That is the same with the given function. Therefore, letter A is an even function. Okay? The first one is an even function. Next. So, we know now that the graph of this is symmetric to y-axis. The second one, g of x, so we will substitute negative x by the given function, 3 times negative x to the fifth power minus 4 times negative x cubed minus 9 times negative x. So when we simplify, the fifth power of negative x, it's negative. Negative x to the fifth times 3. Negative 3x to the fifth. This is negative x cubed times negative 4. So we will have positive 4x cubed. Negative 9 times x, it's positive 9x. We can check if this is the negative of the given. Negative, so we'll just factor out negative times 3x to the fifth minus 4x cubed minus 9x. And as we've noticed that this is the negative of the given function. Negative of the given function. 3x to the fifth minus 4x cubed minus 9x. Therefore, letter B is add function. Okay, so therefore, the graph of g of x is symmetric to the origin. Okay, next, letter C. H of negative x is equal to 2 multiplied by negative x to the 4th power plus 7 times negative x cubed minus negative x squared plus 9. The 4th power of negative x, it's positive x to the 4th times 2. 2x to the 4th, negative x cubed times 7, negative 7x cubed. This is positive x times positive x squared, times negative x squared plus 9. Okay, 2x squared minus 7x cubed, so magkaiba, minus x squared plus 9. So they are not equal and they are also not the negative of this. Therefore, letter C is neither. Okay? Hindi siya at hindi rin siya even. So, we'll see the graph. Let's check the graph of ABC. Figure 8. Figure 8 is the graph of the first one, f of x. 3x to the 4th minus 2x squared plus 7. That's the name of this graph, W. But para siyang W. And figure 9 for letter B. So this is symmetric to y-axis. When you flip it, ang naghahati sa kanila, itong part na to, pinlip nyo pa ganun, ay equal. So y siya. Dito naman, figure 9, this is for g of x. And for g of x, it's an odd. Okay? Symmetric naman sa origin. Okay? So, and for letter C, because the graph of H appearing in figure 10, so nilagay figure 10. Not sure kung ito ba yung graph ng figure 10. Layo ng narating niya. Anyway, yung sa h of x, because the graph of h appearing in figure 10 is not symmetric with respect to either the y-axis nor the origin, the function is neither even nor odd. So, that's it. So, yun yung sagot naman natin. It's neither. So, ano lang yan? Even, odd, neither. Is that clear? How we classify function?
May ask po ako.
Yes po. What is your question?
Pag add po, di ba, symmetric po sa origin,
Origin.
po?
Yes po.
Pag sinabi pong ganun, yung function po ay mag-touch sa 0, 0 po or dadaan?
Even ang even, di ba, ay dumadaan din naman sa 0, 0 kasi ang naghahati ay y-axis. Di ba, meron tayo yun sa x squared. Nag-touch naman yun sa 0, 0. Titingnan nyo saan ba siya humahati. So, dito kasi, this one, medyo lakihan natin. So, origin lang. So, we have, paano hati ba? Pag ganun siya, pataas. Pero pa-diagonal ang hati nito. Hindi kasi pwedeng pag ganun ang hati eh. Dapat pa-diagonal. So, halimbawa, ito pinyo pag ganun. Ano bang mabubuo na? Right triangle. Ito ay dito. So, dito siya sa origin siya. Ang humahati sa kanila ay origin, hindi pwedeng ang x-axis. Okay? So, do you have questions how we classify functions? So, meron tayong different types of functions, linear functions, quadratic functions, square root functions, rational functions, and they are under algebraic or polynomial functions. And we also have another types. We have transcendental functions, and under transcendental, we have trigonometric functions, inverse trigonometric, exponential, logarithmic, and they are under transcendental. And we can classify those functions into two types if it's even function, odd function, or neither. If it's even function, okay, those functions that is symmetric, their graph is symmetric to y-axis. And for those functions that is symmetric to origin, they are belong to odd functions. If it's not even, okay, neither even nor odd, okay, so therefore, neither sila. Wala sa even, wala sa odd. Okay, so yun lang siya. Tatlo lang ang pagpipilian. Kapag naman ang given class ay function, tas wala siyang graph, pwede nyo ding i-determine kung even, odd, or neither by substituting negative x in the given function. If the result is the same with the given function, then it's even, or equal to the original function, it's even. If the result is the negative of the given function, then it's odd. If they are not equal, okay, or not the negative of the given function, then it's neither. Is that clear?
Yes po, ma'am. Clear na po.
So you're done with practice exercises A and B. You're going to answer practice exercise C. Okay, so wag nang kunin ang domain. Just perform the operation. So for C, so that's the basic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. For D, we have composite. Okay, and for E, also composite. All right, so that's it. Any question about Module 6, functions?